So let's have a little chat, shall we? Let's have a little occult chat. This is your host, The Occult View. And I'm going to say this up front. Where is my thing? Let's have a little chat, everyone. I'm going to say this up front. This video may be I'm going to say trigger warning for some people. This may trigger some people who have been through violations of some sort in your life. And when I say violations, I mean SA. You have to abbreviate everything, but y'all know what I'm talking about. I think it's so ridiculous that we cannot actually say the word anymore without being shadow banned. We can't say the word sexual and the end of that if you've been violated. You know what I'm talking about. The world has become so censored that we can't even freely tell our stories anymore. YouTube used to be a place where you could tell your stories. That is why I'm so upset that they are banning TikTok. Because on TikTok you have a little bit more wiggle room, you know? But this is what YouTube has become. It has become a censoring place, and that is really to distract people from all of the horrors that are going on around you, and to desensitize people to not be sensitive to what people have experienced and what people have gone through. Now, I'm a different type of person. When I hear things, and this is part of my spiritual gifts, when I hear things, when I hear certain songs, and I didn't understand it at the time, but when I hear certain songs that make me sad, it's not about me being sad. It's I'm picking up on the frequencies of the artist and what they had to go through making those songs, because when you listen to people sing certain songs, you're listening to their soul. You're listening to their spirit. And I know a lot of people want to, you know, um, how can I put it? I know sometimes people want to be methodical about the spirit and the soul. They want to put it in a methodical bracket, but there's really no methodical or technological way that you can really explain the process of the soul and the spirit. I think they're both the same, in my opinion. Some people say it's different, whatever. That's them. That's my own personal opinion. Because I think that the experience, and when I say the experience of the soul and the spirit, is how you feel. And you can't put that under a microscope. And I think that's the problem that we're having in the world today, because no one knows what soul and spirit really is for the most part, unless you're a witch or a wizard. And those of us that do, fall into those categories, we get ostracized because people think that everything is evil, because that's what religion and the church and religions have taught people. You know what I'm saying? Do we have, for example, when people hear the word Lord, and I'm going to play a song for you in a minute by New Edition called Boys to Men. It's by New Edition, but it's called Boys to Men. But when you think of the word Lord, for example, and you go back and look at the etymology of that word, meaning the origins of that word, you will see that it really had nothing, unless they've changed it, because they're changing so many things, it really had nothing to do with the divine being. It had more to do with a landlord, or someone that was the lord over a piece of land or a home or something like that. And it originated, if I'm not mistaken, from England, which is now known as the UK, that term. It's the same thing with the derogatory F word to describe homosexuals. Did you know that the etymology of that word, the origins of that word, were originally used to describe a detestable woman, or a woman who did detestable things? It wasn't until, I think, the 19th century that it morphed into, or it became, a terminology used mainly to describe a gay man. You feel what I'm saying? But anyway, I've been thinking about a lot of songs and a lot of music that I've listened to and that we've all listened to over the years. And like I said, I'm a different type of person. This is my gift. Maybe some people may not be able to pick up on it, and that's okay. But when I listen to certain songs, if they make me sad, then I know that those people went through a lot of trauma in making those songs. Because when you hear people sing, you can hear the trauma in their voice. When you hear people speak sometimes, you can hear the trauma in their voice that they've been through. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. We've all been through trauma. I've been through trauma. Some of you watching me has been through trauma. The problem is people don't like to admit it because in our global community that we live in, people get shamed for their trauma. But my trauma turned into my triumph. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. But when I listen to this song, there are several songs, and I've talked about this before. There are songs that I've listened to in the past throughout the years, like Patti LaBelle's song, If You Ask Me To. You can hear the sad energy of that song. And when she made that song back in the 80s, I didn't know it at the time, but that song was a ritualistic song. And it was, my allergies are bothering me, excuse me. It was it was around the time that her last sister had passed away. And it was a whole ritual that I'm not going to get into in reference to that song. If you notice, she was wearing all black in that song. And it was also the soundtrack to the James Bond movie, A License to Kill. So keep that in mind. And you can come up with whatever conclusions that you want about that. But then there's another song that I think about. I think about Rick James and Tina Marie. What's that song? Fire and Desire, I believe, or something like that. What's that song by them? It's a song that they sung together. Is it called Desire and Fire and Desire? It may be a little bit before my time or when I was really young, but a lot of people like that song. But if you really listen to the song, you can listen to their personal demons in that song. Just like that song by Renee and Angela, and I know for people that are younger that watch me, you may not know who some of these people are. But just like that song by Renee and Angela, Your Smile. Now, the song is talking about somebody's smile, but when you listen to the tonation, it is very sad, depressing. The energy is very heavy. That is a demon. That is a demon. And I don't mean a demon in the sense of a demon that is well known, but that is those are personal demons. We are listening to people's personal demons, and their music influences a lot of people. And it's the same thing with New Edition. When I look at these men that were in New Edition, Ralph Tresvant, Bill, what is it? The Bivens guy, Johnny Gill, even Bobby Brown, DeVoe, and all of the rest of them, and all of them. When I looked at them in the video, If It Isn't Love, which came out in 1988, when you look at them in the video and how they're moving, as straight men, they're supposed to be straight heterosexual men. They should not be moving like that. They should not be moving like that. And we have to remember, New Edition started out as a young boy group. So it's no telling what type of abuse they had to endure as young boys coming up in that industry. Now, I want to play a song that's always been interesting. I'm going to play a little bit of it by New Edition. It's called Boys to Men. And when you listen to it, it just sounds very, very sad and heavy, at least to me. So I'm going to play a clip of it and you all just listen to it. You can tell us that we're wrong. Something wants to figure out. But life is all about. You keep on, but it's I taught a lesson every day. Together with you. And here's the melody. I'm responsible reality. Oh, yeah. Wisdom helps us understand. Okay, so you all get the message and the gist of what I'm saying. Now, again, I'm a different type of person. I'm not speaking for anybody else. But when I listen to that tonation, and when I listen to the energy of that song, to me, it sounds like a bunch of men that have been through a bunch of trauma. And the name of the song is very interesting, From Boys to Men. And remember, we have a whole nother group called Boys to Men. So, what do they really mean? They went from boys to men. The way I interpret that is that they were groomed. They were groomed. They were groomed as young boys, and then they broke them in. You know what I'm talking about. And then that led them into so called manhood. Because again, let me point out again, let me repeat this. They started out as a young boy group. Remember, Cool It Now? They were young boys, just like Immature, just like the Boys, for those of us who are old enough to remember these older groups. New Edition was no different. And it really makes me think that this is probably why Bobby Brown left the group, because Bobby Brown probably was a little bit more, um, despite what people may think about Bobby Brown on a personal level. I'm thinking this is why he was always in conflict with the group, because he would not go along with the breaking in process. You feel what I'm saying? He wouldn't go along with that. Because when you really go back and listen to New Edition, even though I love their music, they make beautiful music, beautiful voices, not taking anything away from their talent. But if you really look at them and listen to them, they sound really effeminized for straight men. They sound really effeminized. And I'm not judging them about that. As an occultist and a spiritualist, I'm pointing that out. The reason that we're having this conversation is because I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. Music influences people's frequencies, it influences people's minds, and it can influence people in ways, it can influence your subconscious in ways that you may not recognize. So now we're in 2024, and you have people always talking about, well, homosexuality is a problem among black men. There's a lot of things that are going on, but look at what's been programmed into the subconscious mind. Look at what's been programmed. You know what I'm saying? Because at one time, if you were a gay person or a homosexual person, that energy was understood to a certain degree. It was understood that this is the type of energy you have. There was no bigotry, there was no homophobia. You were just a different type of energy. And people dealt with you based upon that energy. Even back during The Roman, even back during the times of great Rome, from what I've read and researched, Roman men, masculine Roman men, would have younger male concubines who were more in the feminine role, and that was acceptable. There was no bigotry, there was no hatred, that was acceptable. And they actually loved some of those men. The problem is the key word is love. That's the key word is love. So what ended up happening was because see we live in a world that unfortunately does not believe in the power of love. And what they present to us as love is actually trauma. Let me say that again. What they present to us as love is actually trauma and sadness. Or they will present love to us as being mean, nasty, and aggressive. Now, I'm all about living in a balanced world, but we have a lot of unbalanced people in this world that are in positions of influencing the masses of people. And that's from politicians, entertainers, well-known sports people, well-known musicians, social media influencers. It doesn't matter who it is. They are really not the embodiment of love and what that really means. And sometimes love can be a little tough. But one thing love is not is hurtful or harmful. Sometimes love can hurt you. I take that back. Sometimes love can feel a little hurtful if you love someone and you lose them. So I understand that. I'm not talking about that. But love should never feel like you're being forsaken. It should never feel like you're being degraded. It should never feel like you're being used and abused. Love should never feel unsafe, unstable, and unsafe or unstable, and or unstable. Love should never feel that way. And we're listening to these musicians sing these songs supposedly about love, but behind the scenes, we're listening to their personal demons. We're listening to all of their personal demons. What really happened to New Edition? What happened to them as little boys coming up in that industry? See, that's the story that hasn't been told yet. Why did Bobby Brown really leave the group? I know people are going to say, well, he went and did his solo career. Yeah, I know. But there's more to it than that. Why was Bobby Brown so abusive towards Whitney Houston? And I'm not making excuses, of course. But really, what was going on with him? Why was he so rebellious? Same thing with Chris Brown. Chris Brown, he was a young man in the industry as well. What really happened to him? How did he morph into the person that we see now? Because that's not the same Chris Brown, at least not mentally, when he first came out, if we want to be honest and technical. Remember, If It Isn't Love, that was one of New Edition's best songs. That was one of their best hit records or hit songs. If It Isn't Love. If It Isn't Love. And that's what I'm talking about. We have to know the difference between love and non love because the wires are getting crossed. The wires are getting crossed. Anyone who says that they love you Let me just be honest with you. Most people who say that they love you, they don't. Most people who say that they love you, they don't. Because most people don't really know the true meaning or the essence of love. Hell, I don't even know if I know the true meaning or the essence of love. I can only give you my interpretation. And my interpretation of love is this: if you really love somebody, there shouldn't be any room for you to maliciously and consciously and malevolently hurt them. Love is not unstable. And love is not unsafe. And I know I said that a couple of minutes ago, but I want people to hear me. Love is not unstable and it is not unsafe. Love is always a safe place. Think of your grandmother. Your grandmother may have spanked your behind like my grandmother used to spank my ass when I did something wrong. But I always knew that my grandmother loved me. There was never a question about that. Now, my aunts and uncles, when they used to hit me, that wasn't love. That was them lashing out. That was hatred. That was them lashing out. So there's a difference. And then people like my aunts and uncles, because they're so manipulative and they're so evil in some of their ways. Well, they're getting old now, and I think now, even though they don't want to admit it, they're realizing now that they made some mistakes, purposeful mistakes. All mistakes aren't done by accident. Okay, you swallow that for a moment. But I knew the difference. There's a difference between discipline and abuse, even. There's a difference between those things. And it's all a spiritual experience. Because my grandmother, she was here to make sure that I stayed on my spiritual path and not become a unloving, unkind person. But when I was a teenager, I started to veer off into that path of becoming an unloving, unkind person. That's because I was still dealing with the hurt of my childhood. And I would lash out at people too. But it wasn't until I went and got me some help, which, people, especially in the black community, are ashamed to go and get themselves help mentally to find out what's going on with you. I remember Bobby Hemmett used to say too that before black people get into any type of magic or any type of consciousness, that a lot of black people need to go and see a psychiatrist. He said that. And I'm not giving anybody no medical advice, but I'm just telling you. And I agree with that. Because I've noticed, and I don't give a fluke who it offends, of course, I've noticed that we have become comfortable in being nasty, disrespectful, dishonorable, backstabbing, and all of these qualities that I just named. People get revered for that in the black community. People get revered for that in other communities as well. But I'm talking about the black community for a moment. You say you love somebody, but then in the same breath, you're cutting their throat. You know, I had to put my ego aside and I had to listen to what Gary Owens was saying about Monique and her husband. And, sometimes I ride with Monique. Most of the time I ride with Monique. I don't agree with everything that Monique say, but Gary Owens made a very valid point. I think he's a comedian, right? He was married to a black woman at one time. Excuse me, my allergies bother me. He made a very valid point. He said that Monique and her husband sometimes say, "Oh, we love you. We love us for real. We love us for real." And then he said, the next thing you know, the same person or the same people that they say that they love, they're cutting their throat in the next setting or in the next cut. And I had to really listen to what he was saying. And I said, you know what? That white dude is right. He's right. And I'm not a Gary Owens fan, but he's right. We have become comfortable and we have become accustomed to, and we have become programmed subconsciously to revere unloving, uncaring, non compassionate behavior. We revere it. That is why I said in my short video earlier, Christ consciousness or the return of Christ is not about religion. It's not about the Bible. It's not about a man coming out of the sky to save you. It is about the self transformation of your heart and of your mind, because the heart and the mind are go hand in hand. A lot of people don't understand that. But the heart and the mind go hand in hand. It's really about your own conscious transformation and returning to that state of Christ. And when I say returning to that state of Christ, I'm talking returning to that state or remembering that state of ultimate enlightenment. Some people may call it Christ. Some people may call it Luciferian. Some people may call it Buddhism, whatever you call it. It's a return to that pure, balanced state. That is what the return of Christ is. And that's the real revolution that's not being televised. See, YouTube not going to televise that. And sometimes, if you feel a little blue or sadness, it's not necessarily that you may be sad. It could be that your vibration is raising to a place where your heart is becoming light as a feather. And the human afflictions, the emotional human afflictions of regret, guilt, anger, bitterness, all of that stuff begins to fade away. And once it begins to fade away, what's left is love and your heart being light as a feather if you are a true enlightened conscious person that's connected to source. And it can feel uncomfortable. It can feel uncomfortable. It's not a comfortable place to be. That's why it takes strong people to be in this spiritual journey. And I'm seeing a lot of people trying to distract people. They're trying to instill fear among people, telling them to turn back to Christ, but they're doing it under the guise of religion and trying to get you to worship someone. And they're doing it under the guise of fear. They want you to be afraid. Well, if you don't turn back before it's too late and all of these other things. Well, first of all, let me say this to those people. You are not part of Christ. That's not what you're part of. You're part of a whole nother entity that I don't even want to talk about. You're aligned with a whole nother entity. And that is why there's so much how can I put it? There's so much suffering in your existence because you're not really aligned with what you call Christ energy or Christ consciousness, which is about balance within the heart and love within the heart. I was listening to Candace Dillard from the Real Housewives of Potomac during the reunion. And Andy Cohen said to her and another lady, y'all need Jesus. And Candace pointed to herself and said, he's right here. No, he's not. No, he's not. Because Christ is neither, it's an energy. It's an energy. And she does not embody that type of consciousness. She doesn't embody that. She doesn't. And it's not because she's on the Housewives of Potomac. Well, she's not anymore. It's not because of that. It's just that she doesn't embody that. So a lot of you who sit up and talk about you're Christ-like, no, you're not. There's nothing spiritual about you. You're led by the flesh. You're led by the world. You're led by other people's personal demons. You're not even led by your own personal demons. You're led by somebody else's personal demons. Should I play the song again? That's what y'all led by. Y'all led by that. That's what you're led by. You're not led by. I was getting ready to tell you all a story. Um, I forgot what it was. When I go in my spiritual, when I go into this type of trance, you know, I forget some things sometimes. Oh, that's what I was going to say. I remember when I was going to church, right? I always knew it was something wrong or something off about the churching system. I'm not talking about God. I'm talking about the church. And like I've always said to highly religious people who think that like for example, like Shawnee O'Neal's husband, the way he spoke to that woman who was a member of his church, who was getting emotional and being filled with the Holy Ghost, like most men do, he shut her down because he's jealous. That man is, what's his name, Pastor Keon? He is not a man of God. That is not a man of God. That is not a man that's connected to spirit. He probably went to seminary school and got some type of doctorate or some type of piece of paper, but that does not ordain you by the spirit. There is nothing spiritual about Shawnee and that Pastor Keon. Shawnee should have kept her ass over there on Basketball Wives. Now all of a sudden you're the first lady of the church and all this old other bullshit. Oh yeah, because you ain't got no more motherfucking money. So now you got to go over here and try to make some money, probably. Fuck out of here. The way he spoke to that woman, and I'm glad it's coming out now. The way he spoke to her, he's a prime example. The way he spoke to that woman and the way that he shut her down when they were having prayer, and she was getting filled with the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit, allegedly. But nevertheless, he told her, quiet, hush, hush, keep it down. And then he went on Tamron Hall's show, I think last week or whatever, a couple of weeks ago, I don't know. I looked at the show, the clip that he was on with Shawnee, and he said so arrogantly, I would do it again because I wanted people to be able to hear God and not her. Well, sir, if you're saying that people needed to hear God, who are you? Who's God? Because God is surely not speaking through you. Because I can look in his eyes and I can see that there's nothing there but pure evil. There's nothing there. There is nothing in that man's eyes that would define someone who is of God or who embodies Christ consciousness. That's a prime example of why a lot of people left the church and found their own spiritual path. And if it leads you back to the church, then so be it. But what you don't have a right to do is to come and try to force people with fear to follow you back to the church, or bully and harass people to get them to follow you back to the church. Because a lot of us are not followers. Well, some of us are not followers. But I remember what I was going to say was before I got into that. But he's a prime example of someone who claims to embody the essence of the Christ consciousness, and he does not. He wants people to worship him. And see, that's what I was getting ready to get into. I remember I always knew something was off about the system of the church. Whenever you had pastors who were treated like gods, who were treated like they were above their parish, or above their congregation, rather. Because most of the people that attended these churches, we didn't have no whole lot of money. And it's not about having a whole lot of money, but I'm just pointing out they wanted you to give your money. They really didn't want your time. They just wanted to know what you did for a living. If you didn't make a whole lot of money, they really didn't have a lot of time for you. That's how you know these people are not really of the true God. That's how you know that. But then you have people who start out, or who appear to be people on a pure spiritual path, and then something happens and they run back to Christianity, which is their business. But I'm going to tell you what happens. I'm going to tell you, Spirit revealed this to me. A lot of people who say they've been attacked by so-called demons, and that's why they went back to Christianity and stuff like that. A lot of those people didn't have a pure heart in the first place. They didn't have a pure heart in the first place. They got into this for the wrong reasons. Even if you get into it for the wrong reasons at first, if you begin to understand how the true importance of a spiritual path and what that really means, when you really understand the true nature of it, and you begin to have respect for the spirit, and you transform yourself into a more genuine person, then you're okay. But a lot of these people got into this spiritual stuff. They got into it for money, to rob people and take people's money, and to satisfy their own needs. That's why they got into it. I was looking for another word, but to satisfy their own needs, self-gratification, greed. So when they're confronted by their personal demons, they think it's a demon coming to attack them. No, sweetheart or dear, no. It's the fact that you didn't have a pure heart. You had an unbalanced heart, and you weren't willing to do the work to help balance your heart out. They weren't willing to do the work. So they went back to Christianity, and they'll go back and say, oh, spirituality is wrong. Jesus is the only way. You notice they only say Jesus. They don't include the Christ. They don't include the Christ, because without the Christ, Jesus was just a man. Hello? Huh, they ain't ready for that. Because the true Christ was Mary Magdalene. But they ain't ready for that type of teaching. They ain't ready for that. Mm-hmm. They ain't ready for that. Jesus was just a man. He was just a man. And I don't give a fuck who don't like what I'm saying. He was just a man, if he existed. But the Christ, that was a divine feminine energy that was balanced. See, people ain't ready for that. They want to be led by other people's demons. Because remember, if it isn't love, right? If it isn't love, why you feel that way? I'm being facetious. I knew something was wrong with the church when I saw how they treated those pastors. And when I saw how those pastors treated their congregation, they didn't talk to us, they spoke at us. And then when my grandmother died in 2001, the way that they treated our family after she died, that is when I said, oh, this is not for me. Because it wasn't about having a relationship with the Lord, as you all say. It wasn't about that. It was about us being influenced by the pastor's own personal demons. Because, they have personal demons too. So that's why I brought up New Edition and other musicians in the beginning. Because the world is influenced by other people's personal demons. Those pastors have their own personal demons too, including my own grandfathers. Both of them were pastors. Both of them. My mother's father and his father. They were both pastors. So I know what I'm talking about. I've been raised around these people all my life. Now, I would not let my mother hear me say this, but her father, he left this world a few years back. His heart was not light as a feather either, because he did not make right the wrongs that he did to his generation that he was responsible for. He only partially made it right. And he was a pastor. But he did a lot of wrong things. Now, of course, I don't want my mother hearing me say this, because she would be very upset with me. And I don't want her upset with me. And I don't talk to her like this. But this is just the truth. So I'm not just talking about, I can bring my own shit into it too, because I don't have no ego about this. Because we've all fallen short of the source. We've all fallen short of the source. We've all had trauma. But the difference between us and them is that they try to hide their trauma and exploit other people's trauma. See, that's the difference. And that's what a lot of pastors do. They exploit other people's trauma. That pastor, Shawnee O'Neal's current husband, Pastor Keon, what he did to that woman was exploitation. He didn't have to call her out in that prayer like that. When people are under the Holy Spirit or under that type of possession, different types of things. Maybe that was her demons balancing out and purging. No, the real reason he told that woman to shut up was because he was scared. He was scared because he saw that a spirit was getting ready to bust him out about something. He saw how powerful she was as a woman. And like most men do, not all, but like most men do, when a woman is exuding her power spiritually, it intimidates them. So he had to shut her down. Be quiet. because he saw God coming through that woman, and ain't no God coming through him. And Shawnee, you back that fucking shit up? You back that up? You okay with your husband doing that? And now he's going on to Tamron Hall and all these other shows trying to further degrade the woman because she spoke out about how he treated her. She had every right to speak out about that. That's abuse. He looks like someone who's, I'm not even gonna go there. But he looks like someone that, whatever. Don't like him. Didn't like him when they first brought him around. Didn't like him. And he acts a little zesty, if you ask me. What's with all these men nowadays wearing tight, all these straight men, supposed to be straight, and you're wearing all these tight pants and acting all effeminate. I'm gay and I don't even wear tight pants. Number one, I'm too chubby to wear tight pants, and that would bring a lot of it. I already got a fat butt, so I don't want to bring no extra attention to myself. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to bring that attention to myself. I am a normal. I'm just a different type of gay, just a different type. Just a different type of gay. Another thing I want to talk about. Why are people so upset that Brother Panic's channel, Occult Lectures, is no longer up anymore? Why are y'all so mad about that? I mean, what are you upset about it for? He's still got clips on YouTube. Subscribe to his Patreon. The video should still be there, I guess. I don't know. But shit happens. He gave enough information for people to do what they needed to do. But that goes to show you, and that goes to show you that I was right again. Most of those niggas was not around him because they wanted spiritual enlightenment. They was around him because they just wanted to be around him. But that's another story. I don't care nothing about that. But get over it. The channel is gone. It is what it is. But if you're doing real spiritual work, you shouldn't need his channel. You shouldn't need that if you're doing real spiritual work, because it's not about him. It's not about his channel. It's not about me. It's about the self-transformation of your own heart. And that is where the true magic takes place. And you can do whatever ritual you want to do to help aid you in that. You know? But the true mysteries and the true transformation takes place in your heart. And people have to stop being led by other people's demons. And we live in a world where people are led by other people's demons. You don't even access your own demons that can benefit you. See, my demons benefit me. They benefit me. When people hear that word demon, they get scared. But just like they're bad demons, they're also bad angels as well. All angels are not good. There are rogue angels. Oh, I know, they're called fallen ones. Well, I'm a fallen one. I'm a fallen angel. I am. I'm a fallen angel. I'm definitely a Nephilim. I got Nephilim DNA. Yes, I do. Most definitely. And probably the ones that watch me, so do you. But I think the main thing that I wanted to get across is that the return of Christ is the return or a return to your true state of consciousness. And your true state of consciousness is being a spiritual, balanced, magical being. And that is the true return of Christ. People have, interpreted it in their own way, that it's more of a radical energy that's going to come and disrupt this world and all that stuff. Well, that's what we're here to do. We're here to disrupt this pattern. That's what we're here to do, because once you go through that self transformation in your heart, and once Christ returns in the heart, not enough, not someone outside of you. I'm talking about what resides in you in the dark, your dark matter, your dark magic. Once you get the light out of that and you begin to do light work on your heart, and your heart self transforms, or self transformation, when that takes place, that is when you will start to see certain things dismantling. You have to save yourself. Nobody's coming back to save us. And that's a hard pill to swallow. You are the spiritual revolution in your own right. No matter if you're a witch, whether you're a wizard, Jesus was a wizard too. None of that. No matter what you do, if you're a witch, you're a wizard, you are, it's all about you and what you do. Stop being a follower. Stop allowing other people's demons to dictate and to run you. And that's really what I wanted to say. Anyway, this is the occult view. Remember, this ain't personal, it's spiritual. Everything is spiritual, it's not personal. This isn't a personal attack on anyone, you know? And this is why a lot of people who can change people's hearts, they don't give those types of people attention. They only give people attention who can corrupt people's heart and can corrupt people's mind under the guise of love, when love is not even in them. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.